Welcome back to another episode of Hockey Weekly. I'm your host, Tyler Lazat, with the one and only Brendan Palu. Brendan, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I am doing well. We're filming here on a Sunday night. The U18AAA Cariboo Cougars hosted the Okanagan Rockets. The Prince George Cougars hosted
Tri-City Americans.
Tri-City Americans. And, the Cougars, strong effort both nights to get the weekend sweep. They're starting to heat up, and great time for them to do so.
Yeah, in front of two healthy crowds, albeit because of the weather. We had obviously as many fans come out as possible. We had a bit of a snowstorm roll through, and it's been cold the past several days, but the crowds came out. They were loud, they were vocal. They gave our boys a push, and the Cougars rewarded the fans that did come out with a couple of pretty solid victories. 4-3 on Friday, followed by a 5-1 win on the Saturday, and vault ahead of Portland for fourth place in the Western Conference by 4 points. Point back of Victoria. You played Game 3 against Tri-City in this mini 3-game set. In the regular season on Tuesday against the Americans in Kennewack before going to Kamloops and Kelowna next weekend. But much better, consistent effort by the Cougars as they try and find their way here down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of games they have been really putting it together, and it's really good to see, of course, the weekend's topped off with Cohen Zemer with the pizza goal. 4,000 fans in the CN Center were sent home with a free small piece of voucher to the Domino's here in Prince George. And let's move on to the U18AAA Cariboo Cougars. Saturday, it was the mental health awareness game. It had really nice black and green jerseys, updated from the previous just green and white. And a really convincing 5-2 victory for the Cougars, and led that into a 2-2 tie here on Sunday.
Yeah, 3-3 there. Caribou had a 3-1 lead in the second, probably kicking themselves for not closing the deal there, but you still get a point, 3 out of 4 in the weekend set against the Rockets. Okanagan playing a much better game on the Sunday at the CN Center compared to the Kin one on the Saturday, where Okanagan found themselves up 2-1, gave up 4 straight for the 5-2 win on the Saturday. 3 out of 4, Caribou up 3 points on both the Rockets and the Valley West Giants for top spot in the BC Elite Hockey League. And really, the Caribou Cougars got a bit of a gift from the Fraser Valley Thunderbirds right after their game, as the Giants blew a 6-4 lead with 8 minutes to go. Fraser Valley scoring 4 straight to win 8-6 at home against the Giants. So Caribou getting a huge favor on the out-of-town scoreboard to keep their advantage to 3, and they got a showcase weekend coming up against Okanagan and the Vancouver Fraser Valley Thunderbirds, who just beat the Giants, and should be an exciting weekend for them. Obviously, there'll be a lot of scouts in the crowd in terms of players looking to sign and commit elsewhere for next season. So still lots to play for, but all in all, pretty good experience, pretty good weekend for the Cougars, taking 3 out of 4 points.
Yeah, very good weekend, and I'd like to give a shout out here to Riley Ludington. He had 3 goals this weekend. Was a major factor in getting those 3 out of 4 points for his team, the U18 Cariboo Cougars, and he's heating up at the right time ahead of the showcase.
Yeah, 2 goals on the Sunday as well. One of the 3 stars in the game, one of my selections on the Sunday game, is Ludington, one of those players that's kind of got that sneaky skill set. He's big, he's lanky, he has some of those attributes, and you never know when he's going to let his shot off, but when he does let it go, it can be pretty accurate, and he tickled the twine twice against the Rockets and looked pretty good doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the second goal here on the Sunday of the weekend, where it was almost an identical goal for Ludington, with just a very deceptive snapshot from the perfect spot and just getting it past the goaltender. And I remember watching him play for U17s last year, and he was one of those players that was consistently driving the offense, along with Blake Collis and Mila Tedesco, who also made the jump with him here in the U18s. And he's one of those players that he just continues to get better. He works hard, and he's been a really good find here for the Cariboo Cougars.
So I wonder where his future will lie after this season. Obviously, has an avenue to the KI if he wants it with the River Rush, him being a Quinnell product and such, but you're going to need those secondary scorers at this time of year, and Riley Leddington, one of those support players that's going to need to step up, and it was nice to see that this weekend against Okanagan.
Very well said. And the U17 AAA Cariboo Cougars, they also got a split this weekend, and the U15s, they tied on Saturday against the Northeast Chiefs, and then they won here Sunday.
Yeah, so good weekend all around for the Cariboo teams. Of course, we had the Northern Capitals in Winnipeg for a tournament for a handful of games. Nice to see some good results there. It's a good exposure for the Capitals too. Like we were talking to Hayden Winter Classic weekend. They had a couple games against Thompson Okanagan after the break. Then they were going to go to Winnipeg this weekend. 4 good games, a lot of exposure for the girls. Not so much for the players that are already committed and have their future decided, but for those that are looking to get that commitment, get that signing, a good weekend for them to play in front of a bunch of scouts in one of the major hubs across the prairies.
It's a very good opportunity indeed. And who are we looking forward to for interviews today?
Well, we've got 3 for the price of 1 this weekend. We have Cariboo Cougar alumni Reid Arberry and Landon Alexander, both playing for the Flin Bombers of the SJHL, both, of course, the pride of Fort St. John. And we also have Cariboo Cougar U18 captain and Williams Lake product Grady Gustafson on the episode as well. So lots of Cariboo U18 content to pass around this weekend with all 3 players representing the past and the current of this program. And it was nice to be able to not only land Landon and Reid pretty much at the same time, but also get the captain of the Cariboo Cougars, Grady Gustafson, on as well in this week's episode. Gustafson, of course, signed with the Okotoks Oilers of the BCHL for next season. So congratulations, Gus, for that. And talked about a whole bunch of things, Cariboo and Williams Lake related, in our chat. So all enjoyable all the way around in terms of all 3. So nice to catch up with all 3 in terms of their situations and finally get them on our podcast.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 excellent guys, really good leaders on and off the ice at all levels that they've been at. It's really cool to touch base with 2 big players for this team from last season, along with Grady here on this episode.
Yeah, of course, Flin Bombers, one of the premier teams in the SJHL. They're right up there again. I think them and Melfort are the super teams in their division, and they're currently 1 and 2. If you remember, it was actually Melfort that upset Flin in the league finals last year. Flin was the top-rated team in the CJHL rankings pretty much all season, and Melfort and their goalie James Venn just got hot. They upset the Bombers in last year's final. Melfort actually came within a game of winning the Centennial Cup, losing to an Ontario-based team last year. But Flin out for vengeance, looking to take it all this year and looking very strong doing it so far. But it looks like, at least at this time, the Mustangs and the Bombers will be setting the pace, not necessarily just in their division, but also when it comes playoff time throughout the entire Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time of year where the level of play intensifies, and there's a lot of really good teams, and it just so happens a lot of former Cariboo alumni on these top echelon teams over in the SJHL and MJHL. Yeah,
you got Josh Sale dealt from Humboldt to Weyburn. Weyburn is first in the Viterra division. Merrick Mammock still with the Humboldt Broncos. They're about middle of the road. A little bit lower of a season so far by their organizational standards. And then you've got Will McKay, Scott Cousins, Decker Moinchin among the elite in the MJHL. I mean, Portage is a class organization. They're up there pretty much each and every year. And, they just had the SJHL, MJHL showcase finish up in the prairies as well. By all accounts, some strong showings there by Decker Moinchin of the Portage Terriers in those games. So, a lot of teams, a lot of players with Northern roots gearing up for the postseason. You also have Owen Wilkinson and Tyson Matthews, members of the Larange Ice Wolves. They're a bit lower in the standings as well, but Larange also a competitive program in the SJHL, and just nice to see a lot of the Cariboo talent thriving at the junior A level. And of course, let's not forget about Prince George Spruce Kings. There's a handful of Cariboo alumni on that team as well. You got Ryder Green, Mason Lowen, Lyndon Mackow on that team, Carter Hesselgrave, who's had a really expanded role since the coaching change. Prince George product Brody Martin is on that team, not a former Cariboo Cougar, but he is a local product on the Spruce Kings roster. Speaking of the Spruce Kings, a bit of a tough weekend for them, losing 2 of 3 on the island. They bookended losses with Nanaimo and Victoria. Sandwiched in the middle of all that, they did skate off to a dominant 5-2 victory over Alberni Valley, upsetting the McIsaac boys, Brady and Kenyon, in that game in Port Alberni. So Spruce Kings having the Bulldogs' number this year, winning the season series there, up 3 Cobb with just one more meeting to go. But Spruce Kings now 8 back of both Nanaimo and Langley for the final playoff spot. They did sign a QMJHL veteran today to add to their 3-goalie rotation in Charles Andre Gravel after Ryder Green started 2 out of the 3 games on the island, winning 1 and losing 1. And, you know, this is kind of like the aftershock of the eligibility change, where you're seeing a lot of BCHL teams, such as the Spruce Kings, really having to get a lot more creative on the waiver wire in signing guys for the remainder of the year, whether it's through the null, getting guys through major junior, or wherever. We're seeing that across the board from a lot of these teams at these very same levels. And we're even seeing players from the Prairies go to the BCHL and vice versa. So you're seeing a lot of, not cross-promotion, but like crisscrossing in terms of transaction. And it's really put the whole sector on its head still.
Yeah, it's an interesting chain of events here that we're seeing with junior hockey in Canada, and you know, it's going to bring about a lot of league changes specifically for the BCHL heading into next season. It's going to be interesting how things carry on. Yeah,
and with that, of course, we have, you know, not only the Spruce Kings. They're going to be back home next weekend, so a chance for them to get back in the fight. They'll be home against Coquitlam next Friday and Saturday from the Copar Memorial Arena. We will not have any home games for any of the Cariboo hockey teams. Capitals, I believe, are on the road. You have all 3 Cariboo teams either on a bye or on the road. Prince George Cougars are on the road, so it's a pretty light schedule for us here in Prince George and the Hockey North studios here in regards of local hockey, but a chance for us to kind of relax a little bit and unwind after, you know, it's been a pretty hectic winter for all of us. But, you know, the schedules are winding down. You take a look at Cariboo's schedule at the U18 side, there's, and even across the board, there's anywhere between 6 to 8 games left, and then right away you're at playoffs.
Yeah, it's fast approaching, and it's one of those things where you're going to blink and it's going to be right in your face. And I will say it's going to be nice to have this weekend here where we can have that rare moment of downtime to not just rewind, but prepare ahead for that final push before playoffs.
Yeah, and of course, included in that, Kootenay International Junior Hockey League, you got the Quesnel River Rush, Williams Lake Mustangs holding down playoff spots within the final couple of weeks of the season. We actually had Jackson Dicker get called up by the Mustangs in one of the road games in Merritt, where the game went to a shootout. Dicker helped the Mustangs get a point in that game, and had to travel back early in the morning to get back and dress for a Cariboo. He played a period in the Saturday game, then Andrew Kleigus carried the mail the rest of the way into Saturday and into Sunday. And, you know, it's just one of those times where some teams are hit by the injury bug and the flu bug too, and you're digging deep into your AP list as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's that time of year where you're going to have a good Rolodex of APs to come in and fill in pivotal moments, and sometimes at times where you least expect it as a team.
Cariboo Cougars, of course, dipping into that as well. You had Mason McGinnis from the Northeast Trackers slot in, as there is still no Jack Tidsbury. Blake Collison's a couple weeks away from returning due to that foot injury he sustained not too long ago. So, Caribou needing to fill out their rosters too. And, it's not just the junior clubs feeling the crunch at this time of year. It's basically everybody. And it's that organizational depth that's being tested.
Very much. And you look at this weekend, I mean, there was moments in the game on Saturday for the Cariboo Cougars as, you could see a little bit miscommunication between guys, chemistry, maybe not being as consistent as it was prior. And I mean, what do you expect? You do lose two of your top six forwards. But that being said, I feel like the Cariboo Cougars really handled it well and competed hard. And, they didn't quite get the result they wanted with the full 4 points this weekend. But, they did as well as they could, I think, with a lot of those key guys out of the lineup.
Yeah, even though he might not have gotten a ton of points, I thought Bo Murray exuded himself very well in that makeshift second line role. It's a guy that likes to play that fast, hard, northern style of game from somebody who's from the island. Bo Murray doing a good job of creating space and trying to make plays out there. He had, a couple guys in a couple different spots. You saw Gustafson double shifted at times, playing on two different lines, filling that fourth line center spot because, Caribou only had 11 forwards for the entire weekend. So everybody was expected to do a little bit more. And I think for the most part, they handled that quite well.
I think they certainly did.
Mm-hmm. With more on today, here's our interviews on this weekend show. First off, we'll start things off with Landon Alexander and Reid Arberry of the Flin Bombers, followed by my chat with the captain of your U18 Cariboo Cougars and Williams Lake product, Grady Gustafson. Welcome back to Hockey North Weekly. With me now are our guests from Fort St. John, BC, and both members of the Flin Bombers, Reid Arberry and Landon Alexander. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us here.
Of course. It's nice to have a couple of Cariboo Cougars alumni on. You're both enjoying the season with the Flin Bombers, I guess. First and foremost, how's it going with the Bombers, who look to be in pursuit of another championship?
Go ahead there.
Yeah, no, it was a tough start for me. I broke my finger in a training camp there. It took me out for the first 12 weeks of the season there because I was trying to come back too soon and re-broke it there. So it was a pretty tough start for me, but now I'm into the swing of things now for sure, and it's been going smoothly now. So for sure.
Yeah, you scored a couple of goals there recently. Do you feel like you're kind of acclimated to the junior A game now?
Yeah, I'm getting there for sure. It definitely takes a few games there. It's quite a bit faster, quite a bit more physical, and you're playing some older guys, that's for sure. So I feel like I'm getting the hang of it now there. So yeah, it's been good. What about you, Reid?
No, it's last year was a good year for me. We had a strong team, and I didn't play very much. I was a scratch for us most of the season. Got injured towards the end of the year, but that kind of let me be confident coming into this year, got me into the swing of things, and then I was able to step into a higher role this year and just kind of walk into it smoothly, knowing what to expect. So it's been a good start for me.
Yeah. And what's it like, understanding the standard or the organizational expectations? Mike Regan's been there a while. He's had a lot of good teams during his tenure, and it just seems like there's no rebuild with the Bombers anymore. It's take another run at it, retool, and then come back at it again next year.
Well, yeah, he keeps up with the general manager job of it for sure. We always have young guys coming up. Even now, we have a bunch of young players signed for next year. I'm not worried about next year's team. We're just keep throwing what we got, and one of these years it's going to work for us.
Yeah, you had a dream season. I think you were ranked number 1 for most of the year, and then you ran into a red hot James Venn and a Melfort Mustangs team, and they kind of got the better of you.
Yeah, not to make excuses about that series, but we came in after over a week break from our last series, hadn't really battled any adversity, and they just were fresh out of a 7-game series with Humboldt. Took game 1 at 8-1 in our 8-2 in our own barn, just upset us. Took game 2, and then game 3 we got kind of cheesed on an overtime call, and then the hole was just too deep after that.
Mm-hmm. Now, both of you are from Fort St. John, both of you Cariboo Cougar graduates. Both of you also played Northern Trackers together. You both, being from the same community, played minor hockey growing up, even though there's kind of 1 year age difference between the two of you?
Yeah, we were always on the same team that every second year, anyways. And my brother is Rito's age there, and yeah, I was always playing with Rito and my brother, so it was good for us for sure. And then playing again here now is it's been.
What are some of your earliest minor hockey memories in Fort St. John, Peace region there? You're kind of up there in the boonies. You're kind of closer to Alberta, depending on where you're traveling. And just talk about some of the journeys and I guess some of the grit that you have to have and living in those communities, because it's not always easy getting from place to place, especially in the wintertime.
No, we got a couple long journeys for sure. There's one vivid memory that comes back every time I think about playing minor hockey in Fort St. John, and that's a bus trip to Lacrete, Alberta. There's a stretch where you're driving about 20 kilometers an hour across a frozen lake to get there, and the hockey bus is just, it's kind of shaking back and forth. You look out the windows and there's water splashing up over the ice, and it's flooding onto the road. It's a pretty sketchy experience for sure, but it's one of those stories that you tell and just kind of makes you grateful for the other roads you get to take when they're not like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, you both played for the Trackers for a year. Just talk about that program. I've heard a lot of good things. It's very competitive year after year. I know it's considered double A compared to the triple A program here with Cariboo, but just talk about the caliber of play, and is it somewhat underrated or underappreciated at times?
Yeah, I feel like that's the case a lot of the time. They're always at the top of the league there for the past few years now, and yeah, we pull some players from a lot of the surrounding cities, and yeah, we get some good players up there for a few seasons. Yeah, the coaching's been great. There's a guy that runs the skills, and he's awesome. He's always getting them out on the ice every morning and doing skills with them. So yeah, they got a good program going there, and really developing good players. So.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Fort St. John doesn't lack the development as much as it lacks the competition to play against us. That's where we fall short.
Now, you both kind of took some different path after your one and only season with the Trackers. Landon, you played in Grand Prairie for a year before coming to the Cariboo Cougars. Reid, you went to Cariboo right afterwards. Just talk about the slightly different paths after that season.
Yeah, so my second year midget, my older brother was playing for the Grand Prairie Storm in the AJ for his third year midget there. So I decided to go live with him and play in the U18 midget league there. And yeah, that was good. It was good living with my brother, especially because it was my first time moving away from the parents, and it was a pretty big change for me. But yeah, and then after that, pretty much knew that program wasn't going to cut it for my third year midget. I'm not going to say that that program was terrible, but Prince George was definitely the better program to go to. I made my decision to come there for my third year midget because I knew that was a big year for me to move up. So yeah.
Yeah. For you, Reid?
For me, it was I only got 2 years of midget because my first year was a COVID season. So I played Trackers my second year, decided to stay home one more season. And then I moved to Prince George for the third year. And that was just kind of It was too late. I should have moved in my second year and decided to hold back one more, but that's in the past now. I'm happy that I made the decision I did, and it led me to where I'm at. So can't complain about it.
I guess what did the coaching staff kind of do for you when you both played for Caribou to help get you to that junior A level?
Yeah, like RJ with the morning skills, school ice there is huge. Like having us on the ice every morning, developing, and then the team skates with Bruffer, they're not easy either. They're competitive, and he keeps us to a high standard. And yeah, no, it was just everything about that program was good for me, and the coaches talking the teams for me and everything. It was just it was a good spot for me to end up the career in. Anyways.
Yeah, it was definitely a step up from Double A and just preparing me for the next level. Everything was at next standard. Everything was a little bit better in Prince George, and that was just kind of preparing me to take the step.
Yeah. What's in the water in terms of the development of the programs, in the Northeast and kind of in and around that Peace region? You have the Trackers program, you have the Northeast Predators, and they're always up there. They're always very competitive. They're always going to tournaments. What is it about those programs that keep being competitive year after year?
I think everybody just especially it starts with our coaching. Everyone's willing to come back and give to our community. Like I know for when I was playing Trackers, at least we had a coach that was playing up in the AHL a little bit in AHL, and he came home and all he wanted was to see us succeed. And it's just it's a foundation built around people wanting the kids to have the best shot to move on.
I guess how would you both describe yourself as players?
Yeah, I'm definitely a physical player. I like the physical part of the game there. So yeah, I'm not really going out there to score a goal. I'm going out there to give the team some energy, and yeah, I like play good defense. Obviously, I like to call myself a good defensive player, but and then hopefully I think the offense comes. But yeah, I'm definitely a more physical presence out there, anyways.
Yeah, in northern Alberta growing up, we definitely had to be a little bit stronger, and I think that just gives us an edge out here. We can outmuscle a lot of guys and just kind of skate through them. We're both pretty physical, and like to add a little bit of skill to the game when I can, but try not to overcomplicate it, or else I'll just mess everything up.
Yeah. That seems to be the sense around Northern hockey players in BC, Alberta. They're just, the grittier, more blue collar, you know, I don't want to say they all have a chip on their shoulder, but they just seem to have that certain edge where maybe some of the more city/urban teams might be a little bit softer.
Yeah, that's definitely growing up. I remember Lando's dad was our coach a bunch of years, and he would, when we were at big tournaments in the city, he would let us know that these city kids are soft, and we can outmuscle them and outwork them, and we just want it more. That's why we're as successful as an organization.
Who did you both kind of idolize growing up as players?
Yeah, for me it was always my older brother. Kind of, he was just always that one step ahead of me, and he made a few pretty good accomplishments in his hockey career there. And if we're talking NHL, it was always Pratish Bergeron for me off the Boston Bruins. But yeah, and I guess my dad. My dad was always playing some pretty good hockey, so he played for the senior AAA team in town and ended up winning the Allen Cup there the 2010 year. So that was pretty cool. I got to watch that game, and yeah, it was always big for me. My dad, I guess.
For me, NHL players, I grew up loving Jerome McGinley. He was just an all-around gritty hockey player, and I loved seeing him fight and score and make nice plays. It was just something that I wanted to model my game after. And then for a local guy, we have a guy, Connor Bowie from Fort St. John, and he was playing WHL in Prince George actually while I was up through minor hockey, and he was always kind of that local guy that gave you the inspiration that you can make it to the next level.
Yeah, I remember watching and covering Connor when he played for the Cougars. I remember when he got traded from the Portland Winterhawks to come to the
Yeah.
Cougars at the time because he was originally a Portland prospect when he was making his decision on where he was going to play. Another guy that came through the trackers that played for the Spruce Kings that's now in the NCAA that's from Hudson's Hope is John Harrington. Do you know that name very well?
Yeah, I never actually knew Johnny that well growing up, but I was with the Spruce Kings for a bit in my last AAA season there, and it was nice to have a pretty, not a familiar face in the dressing room, but someone who kind of knew where you were from, could connect with you a little bit.
Mhm. Just take us through Flin Flon. I mean, you're both northern guys. You spent time, in Prince George, up in the Peace regions of Northeast BC and Alberta. Does it kind of feel like home a little bit? What's a typical game day look like heading to the Whitney Forum?
Yeah, it's pretty cool there. It's definitely not that much different than home. Uh, it's definitely a little bit of a change though, but it's crazy. It's just everybody in the town knows who you are. Is trying to talk to you on the street there, and the support we get up here is awesome. It's crazy, but going to the rink in the morning is like for game day. It's barn's always packed, always excited going throughout the day. Can barely get the pregame nap in because you're so excited. But yeah, it's pretty cool up here for sure.
What do
I
you think,
think
Reid?
I think going to the Whitney Forum is one of the most surreal feelings that I've experienced in hockey, at least. Walking onto the ice as the whole building's erupting, and even I didn't play in playoffs last year. I was injured, but just being in the arena for that atmosphere was next to anything I've experienced.
Yeah. There's a lot of history in that building. There's a lot of history in that franchise. Bobby Clark and Reggie Leach were both Flin Flon Bombers, and they're Philadelphia Flyer legends. So, this organization that's been around a long time, and there's a lot of history passed down to players like yourselves who are now wearing that exact same jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to wear the logo. Though thinking about those guys that paved the way for us, like that's where the standards and expectations for the organization started, was early and often, and they like to stick to it around here.
Yeah. Is that something that Mike always preaches to you guys in terms of playing hard, playing the right way, playing for the crest and the community? Is that kind of what Mike preaches to you game in and game out?
Yeah, for sure. You hear it tons. If yeah, no, I feel like that's exactly pretty much nailed it there. That's exactly what he's talking about. So
Yeah, he's big on respecting it too. Like everything that we do is like we're in the spotlight in town. Everybody in town knows who we are, and if we're not being the most respectful that we can be, it's just a bad look on our organization. So it's a lot to uphold here, and it's an honor to do it.
Mm. Now you've both watched obviously the eligibility changes in terms of, CHL players now being eligible to get NCAA scholarships with both of you playing the junior A route in the SJHL. A lot of times scholarships are maybe a little bit harder to come by and maybe not as plentiful. But is it with that in mind, do you have to work that much harder now, you think, to kind of get more attention, knowing that the player pool to get south of the border is a lot larger than it was a couple of months ago?
Yeah, it's definitely it's tough to make now, but I think the SJ is a pretty unheard of league when it comes to Division 1. There's not a lot of scouts come up, and the guys that do get seen, they're pretty lucky to get seen. And with the CHL guys being able to go south of the border, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The U Sports is going to get a lot stronger, and I feel like that's where a lot of SJ guys are going to end up going.
Yeah. What about you, Landon?
Yeah, it's not going to be impossible, but it's definitely going to be a lot harder now. But it makes you want to work for it that much more, and yeah, just hope for the best and see where it takes us.
Yeah.
Do you know a lot of guys that have jumped, not necessarily from the SJ or from other leagues, that have gone from junior A to major junior, or have filtered back to the junior A level because it's getting a lot more hectic in terms of mid-season recruiting?
Yeah, there's a lot more jumps now with everything up like that. There's no eligibility loss if you move up, so there's no risk for players, which it's good for development because then players can take that without losing their eligibility if it doesn't work out for them. But there's a few guys that it does affect in a negative way, and it kind of sucks for them.
Let's talk about your goaltender, Matthew Keeper, how critical he's been this year.
Oh yeah, it's ever since we got Keeps, we've been on this 25 game point, I believe it is. So he's huge. He's such a good guy in the dressing room, and it shows how far that goes. He's just easy to talk to. He's an old guy, but he's the nicest guy I've ever met, and he's good too. So that helps. And yeah, he's always a guy, like when he's in net, you know he's gonna make the saves that he needs to make, and yeah, it's he's helped us out on this year.
Yeah, I think when we picked up Keeps, it was just kind of that sure thing for us that we knew we had that lock on our back end, and like Lando said, in the room, he's just the next best thing is him. He's super kind to everybody. He's a great veteran presence in the room. He knows how to win. He knows what it takes, and he's willing to do it.
Mm-hmm. What are your maybe pregame superstitions or routines that you kind of have to do to get prepared for a game?
Well, I'm always in the ice bath after morning skate. Other than that, I need a nap, and then yeah, that's about it, I guess.
Yeah, I either need a nap and a couple holes on PGA or game manning on the PlayStation.
All right, I'll ask you this question, and I've asked this in the last several episodes. You'll probably pick each other, but I'll ask it anyways. You're stranded on a desert island with 3 teammates. Who would you pick and why?
Yeah, I'm not gonna pick Rito just because, but you would be great out there. But yeah, probably go with our captain Cole Tanchuk because he's a good outdoor guy. He's pretty outdoorsy, always taking me ice fishing and stuff like that. I'd probably take probably Keeper, Matthew Keeper, goalie we were just talking about, because he'll keep us company. And then to end it off there, yeah, I'll probably I'll take Kenny, because Kenny's just our other goalie, and he's just Kenny. So
you got to meet Kenny.
Yeah. You got to meet Kenny to know what I'm
Is he a pretty chill guy?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm taking Lando. The boys went ice fishing, and he was the one that got the fire going. So I think that's pretty essential. Yeah. And then I'm gonna take Cole Tanchuk. Well, keeping it outdoorsy. I want to be able to survive. And then I think I have to go with Carter Cormier, just because got to keep the vibes light too. Got to get some jokes flowing around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there like a one hangout or certain places that the players like to go in town when either after a game or when you have a day off, just to relax or unwind?
Sometimes the boys end up in the basement here playing some NHL or watching a movie, but there's not really too much to get out and get social in Flin Flon.
I guess aspirations with hockey, obviously everyone wants to go to the NHL, everyone else wants to get a scholarship, but how do you kind of see in your own eyes kind of the next couple years turning out for you?
Yeah, I hope to just get better every day and work my way up the lineup and start to produce for my team, and just see where it takes me. Hopefully, a scholarship or something like that. But I'm looking just to the shorts, and I'll just keep getting better every day and see where that.
I'm kind of in the same boat here. I'm worried about having a good playoff run this year before talking to schools, and then I'd say worrying about having a good 20-year-old year and putting myself in a position to be talking to schools in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Do you still keep in touch with a lot of the Cariboo teammates that you had when you both played?
Yeah, I still talk to the boys for sure. We have a couple of the guys in the league too, like Merrick Mammox in Humboldt and Josh Sales in Weyburn, now just got traded from Humboldt. So it's nice to catch up with those boys when we're playing against them.
Yeah, I've been catching up with Owen Wilkinson and Tyson Matthews because they're obviously on L'Orange there. So it's always good to see them. They're a pretty good division rival. So we've played them quite a bit this year, and then obviously Will McKay. Caught up with him a bit at the start of the year, and it's always good to get those guys, just see how they're doing, and
I see Will McKay now a member of the Portage Terriers, so there's a few PG boys on that team, a few Northern guys. You got Will, you got Scott Cousins, who was a Cariboo Cougar as well as a Spruce King, and then you got Decker Moinchin, who's in his 20-year-old season with the Portage Terriers. He was, of course, just at the SJMJ Showcase. His younger brother, Cadrick, is draft eligible. He's playing U15 with Cariboo. So lots of Northern talent scattered about in the league. I know Cariboo U18, they're in first place right now. Just finished their weekend on the road after Winter Classic weekend. Didn't quite go their way, but that's another thing I'll probably ask you. You both experienced, I think, the Winter Classic once each in Fort St. James. What did you think of that?
Yeah, that was awesome, getting the boys out there. Like, that's something I'll probably never experience in my life again. So it was definitely like something that I wanted to do, is play a game outdoors, and that was awesome. We split last year, so it was the outdoor game went our way, though. I think we won 7-2, and I got on the board times, I think. So it was it was fun for sure.
Yeah, when you're at the Cariboo camp at the start of the year and they're talking about what goes on throughout the season and they bring up the Winter Classic game, it's one of those things that you're waiting for it all season. When it came around the corner, I was playing with another boy from Fort St. John, Mason Lowen, and he actually scored 6 that game, and I had assists on 5 of them. We ended up winning like 10-3. It was a riot, and we just had probably one of the most fun weekends of hockey I've ever had.
Yeah, Mason Lowen, of course, now with the Prince George Spruce Kings. I actually ran into somebody that knew Mason. I ran into him at some place in Prince George. I think it was the casino. I was going to pick up something. It's like, oh, yeah, we love Mason out in Fort St. John and Charlie Lake area.
Yeah. It was probably one of his family.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on this week's episode of the podcast. Good luck with the Bombers this year as you try and chase down that championship, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, it was awesome to have us. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for doing that.
Well, welcome back to Hockey North Weekly. With me now is the captain of the U18 Cariboo Cougars, Grady Gustafson. Grady, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Grady, you're in the midst of finishing another season. You got about a handful of games left U18s are in first place right now, 3 points up on both Valley West and Okanagan. You wrapped up a pretty competitive weekend against the Rockets, taking 3 out of 4 points. What was your assessment on the weekend?
Yeah, it was a good weekend. 2 hard-fought games between two top teams, right? So anytime 2 top teams are going against each other, you're going to see good competitive hockey for the most part, and that's what it was. It was fight to the end, and a tie today was maybe not what we hoped for, but still a good result for 3 out of 4, and we did our job. So.
And we're talking with the coaches prior to the game on Sunday. It's actually quite a young Okanagan team that has a lot of high-end talent. I think they were saying, 15, 16 players that were, either first or second year. So this is a team that's been building. I mean, Okanagan as a program as a whole has been, quite competitive over the years at every age group, but it just seems like they have that core that's figured it out late in the year, and it could make the race for first a bit more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. They are a young team, like you said. They do have a lot of skill up front. They got some big point producers up there, so I mean, you have to give them respect. They've been a staple in this league for a long time. So, coaching staff and their programs is solid for sure. So you got to give them respect they deserve, and can't take them lightly in any game, especially coming into playoffs here.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about obviously the season. There's been mostly high. There's been a few downs in terms of results, but. When you kind of assess the first 30 games of your team, are you happy with where your team is at right now?
Yeah, for sure. I'm proud of every guy on this team. They stepped up, through the good times to the bad. We've battled through, found ways to win some big games. So, and I think we've came a long ways since the start of the season in terms of just skill and being part of a team and that sort of thing. I think every guy has definitely stepped up in times that they needed to, and I think it shows in our record. First place in the league right now is something we definitely take pride in, and hopefully we can stay there going into playoffs.
You talk about pride. How much pride do you take in being the captain of this team?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely an honor. You look back at the alumni who were maybe captains, and Mason Lowen last year, he's with the Spruce Kings now. I mean, that's definitely a guy I look up to. Kind of honored to fill his role. I mean, it's a tough role to fill, big shoes. He did a hell of a job last year, being our captain, and you got to tip your hat to that. But yeah, it's definitely a huge role, trying to step up and be what you need for the players.
What did you learn from a guy like Mason?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hard work, and every day he shows up with a good attitude, hard work ethic. Definitely a player, just competes every practice, every workout, kind of a no days off type of guy.
Mm-hmm. You're from Williams Lake. That's been one of the main recruiting points of not only the Cariboo Cougars program, but for the Northern Capitals. Been a lot of good players from your hometown that have come through here, either turn pro or play university or get signed to a contract somewhere. I've asked a lot of the Williams Lake guys this, but I'll ask you this too. Just what's in the water down there in terms of like the coaching and the player development from the minor hockey system, and just why you see so many of these kids from your hometown here at the AAA level?
Yeah, I think it's a small town. You maybe don't have all the high-end skill that a Prince George, a Kelowna, Vancouver would have. So, I mean, you got to find ways to win, and that's really just hard work and being that gritty style of play. So, to win games, and I think that's such a tight-knit group there with some good coaching staff. I mean, all the coaches I've had and through the years have been great for me and my development. So I just think the guys coming up through that, just having a gritty, hardworking play style just really pays off up north here.
Yeah. You got 5 players, including yourself, from Williams Lake on this year's team. Must feel pretty special to share the experience with a lot of the guys you probably grew up playing with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, seeing guys come from a small town, maybe a less favorable, market, you could say. It's awesome to see, and especially being some of your buddies that you grew up playing with, from a young age, initiation, novice. It's fun to have these experiences with them for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about yourself as a player. How would you best describe yourself in terms of how you play?
Yeah, just trying to be a two-way guy that coaches can lean on, trust trust in big situations. Kind of hard-nosed, gritty working player who has a little bit of skill sometimes that shows through, but just trying to outcompete my competition.
Who was your biggest hockey idol growing up?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I was a big Canucks fan growing up, so you look at guys like Henrik, Daniel Sedin, Alex Burrows, all those guys were super big, and then you look at guys like Carey Price, came from Williams Lake. He's a role model of probably everyone in that community. It just made it to such a big level and from such a small town, so probably would say him, yeah.
Yeah. You've got your future solidified at the moment. You're signed by Okotoks in the BCHL for next year. You were listed by Portland for a couple years, went to camp. With everything going on in terms of, the player movement from players bolting the BCHL and Junior A to Major Junior, and sometimes you get that overflow coming back. You have the commitment, you have an idea of where you're going, but how do you assess that whole situation just on how crazy it's been since the eligibility change was announced?
Yeah, it's definitely a change. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot really have changed because, the top guys from the BC will jump up, and some of those, the bottom end guys from the Dub or the O or the Q will come down and fill those roles. I think, I just got to focus on doing the right things to make myself impactful at the next level, so junior, and then, it'll play out from there. Just trying to work hard and compete every day, and hopefully it'll play out from there.
What was it about the Okotoks opportunity that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think they're a pretty similar play style to Cariboo, just a hard, speed, fast-working team that just is gritty and, kind of that male mentality from Prince George, just hard-working. And, they reached out to me, and I was more than happy to go to their spring camp and then kind of moved on from there.
Mm-hmm. How would you, what's your preparation like going into a game? Is it a little bit more intense because you are the captain and kind of viewed as a extension of the coaching staff? Do you just try and stick to your individual routine before a game? What does that look like for you on a game day?
Yeah, for sure. I just try to stick to my individual routine, kind of just going through, my day-to-day and game preparation. It's pretty much the same throughout every game, but then you obviously as a captain kind of have to look around and make sure that everyone else is get ready to go. But I think in this group we have a lot of guys that show up and are ready to go, so they don't make my job too hard for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you like to nap before a game? Is there like a certain pregame meal you have to have, or certain equipment you like to put on first in order to get yourself mentally prepared?
Yeah, I'm not super superstitious, but yeah, definitely I like to nap on game days when we have later game time. Always get my electrolytes in the morning and then different supplements before the game.
Yeah. What are your favorite minor hockey memories growing up as a kid?
I know a couple. You probably have a couple Prince George fans on here, but beating Prince George in the playoffs as a Williams Lake to go to provincial is definitely up there. Yeah, there's definitely been a couple tournaments that we've won. It's always a good feeling. But yeah, just growing up with my buddies and being able to play, on outdoor rink or around there, just having fun is always good memories. So.
And of course, you had the Winter Classic, not the result you're looking for in the weekend in terms of losing both games to the Giants. You went to the Circle K, went up against the top-rated team in Shattuck St. Mary's and played some other good competition. Even if you don't always get the results that you're looking for, how does playing against those top-end teams, whether it's at the Circle K or teams like Valley West or Okanagan, how does that push or motivate your team to be better?
Yeah, for sure. Playing against Shattuck's, it kind of just set a bar maybe for our team that we have to strive for. That's a powerhouse of a team. You talk about some of the best teams in U18 hockey all around the world, and they're always in the conversation for sure. So, playing against that competition and seeing what level is kind of expected of you for junior or college. There's lots of college commits on that team, so seeing what level you have to get to be at that level is definitely cool and good for our group of guys.
What do you want out of the game? Do you want a scholarship? Do you want to play pro? Do you want to play overseas? I know there's certain dominoes that have to fall for you in order for that to happen, but where do you kind of see yourself when the junior/college portion of that is done for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think playing pro, wherever the opportunity might come, I think Europe has been maybe a goal of mine. It's definitely a cool spot over there, but I think first and foremost is getting my education paid for through hockey is definitely my first goal. It's been one of my goals for a long time, so hopefully strive towards that.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're from Williams Lake, as we've already established in the podcast. Junior hockey has come back to that community after a long time away, as has Quesnel, where you have the Mustangs and the Quesnel River Rush pretty much side by each now in the same division, and the KI having expansion teams. Even if that isn't the path for you and the KI isn't necessarily on your radar in terms of your path going through junior, how nice is it knowing that there's junior hockey back in your home community?
It's awesome. I mean, I've been to a couple of games, out, and just the buzz around the community is great to see. I mean, it's been probably 20 years since the Timberwolves have been in the BCJ, and then coming back in the KI now is definitely a good market. I hope it continues to be. I know the town's been behind on this season for sure, and I think it's only going to grow. I think you're going to see a lot of players want to play in those small town markets where maybe you don't have Kamloops Blazers and you're the Kamloops Storm third, or the the Kelowna Chiefs and having the Kelowna. You get a whole bunch of small town, and you're the star. You know what I mean? So you're playing in front of a crowd, and all those kids look up to you, and I think you're going to see a lot of growth, and I hope that community backs that team up because I think they deserve it.
Yeah, and you got a lot of Cariboo grads on that team. You got Logan Hauk, Noah Pears, Garrett Feeney, Declan Pocock was with the Cariboo program for a while. There's probably a couple others that I'm missing from that list as well, but you also have Asher Lucas, who's drafted by Seattle. His dad Tyrell's the coach, running high-level programs there. How well do you know the Lucases, and how nice is it to see a lot of players that you play with now be at that level, be on that team?
Yeah, I grew up playing with Asher, and then Ty was my coach. I skate with them pretty much every summer, so they have their Total Ice Training Center set up, pretty great setup for guys in the summer looking to get better and improve on their game. Asher is definitely a competitor, definitely a skillful player. He's tough to play against in the summer ice. So, I hope his career takes off here, and he makes the jump to maybe a major junior or a BCHL for sure. And I think he has all the right tools to do that. So hopefully see him take off.
Yeah, and of course we were in Williams Lake in October. We got to touch base with a lot of the Cariboo guys that are rostered there now. We also have Bagri and a couple others suiting up for the River Rush too. But to have a lot of Cariboo players have that available as an outlet now and to stay close to home has got to be a pretty good deal.
Yeah, for sure. Especially you say staying close to home. It's so important for these guys. I mean, they're still young players, so maybe making that jump, 1,000 kilometers away from home is too big, but especially just being able to play in front of your hometown is definitely a cool feeling. I know. Yeah, I mean, I miss it in Williams Lake, playing in front of the hometown crowd in that barn, and guys like Bagri getting to suit up for Quesnel and having his community back him up, or Asher Lucas, you said, and guys like that definitely have their community backing them up is definitely a cool feeling.
Yeah. So we're going to ask the question. You're on a stranded island with 3 of your teammates. Who are you picking and why?
Cool. All right. Wow, loaded question. Yeah, I watched your guys' last episode with Jackson Larmelon, so I'll say Larmy he gave me a shout out, so I'll give him one. I'll give it to Larmy. Who else do I want? Wow. Just looking at name tags around the room here. I'll go with Bo Murray. I'll take him. I think he's a gritty guy. Battles in the corners. I think he'll be gritty on that island. So take him, and then I'll go with little Feeney, Connor Feeney. I think he's got some potential. He's got the smarts maybe to help us out. So he's definitely got some potential.
Well, I think those are three good choices. Well, we thank you for coming on to our podcast this week. We actually have a couple other Cariboo Cougar grads on this week's episode as well that we're going to throw to a bit later on, and Reid Arberry and Landon Alexander. So it's going to be, a full-on Cariboo episode of the current and past players of not two days gone by on this episode this week. So thank you for coming on, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
That was our guest for this week, Reid Arberry, Landon Alexander, the Flin Bombers, Grady Gustafson of the U18 Cariboo Cougars. Of course, we thank our guests as always, taking the time to chat with us on our podcast episodes here. And with that, we will sign off for another weekly show of Hockey North Weekly. We'll try and let you know who our next guests are, but we'll figure that out on our end first. But thank you very much for joining us on another episode of Hockey North Weekly, and we will see you next weekend.